and I'm going to probably just launch the presentation straight away. So bear with me while I share it. And Manuela, could you give me a thumbs up if you see the present? Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, so we are here for day 4. Only one more day to go. And I think the content has been fuller and maybe perhaps a little bit more overwhelming on some days and a little bit less on other days. I think today is another big day. And marketing, I almost feel like I should be wearing a flak jacket for this because it's difficult and it asks a lot of you. And I know that I know it's a lot to ask. Anyway, we're going to have a good look at marketing. This isn't really a presentation about marketing. It's a presentation about how we are planning our business for the year. And as part of that, we're thinking about planning our marketing. So this isn't going to get in depth into marketing, but it will cover the aspects of marketing that we should be thinking about for our plan. So the usual housekeeping, welcome back. Please, could you put yourself on mute? Unless you want to ask a question or say something, we will have Q&A at the end, but being on mute just stops there being any background distractions, makes me jumpy. So I have said on previous days and again today, if you're watching the recording and you've arrived on day 4 as your very first introduction, it's a good idea to go back and watch the previous days 1, 2, 3, and 4, because we're building on the previous day's work with each new session. So there may be some things we talk about in this session today that don't make sense if you haven't been with us on the previous occasions. And I keep reiterating, you are not just a designer, you are also the CEO of a small business. And that means that as the CEO, your business has different operational departments. And one of those departments, of course, is marketing. And that's the department that we're going to be looking at today. So there is not enough time this week to come up with, a fully resolved business plan, marketing plan, get all of our ducks in a row. However, the point of the week is to encourage you to think about improving the management quality of your business so that you can make better decisions, you'll have a clearer direction, and the whole thing is sitting on stronger foundations. So tomorrow, we're going to pull the whole thing together. It's going to give you direction for the year. So it's not going to be perfect, but if you keep working on it, it will get closer to perfection. It's going to be something that you can work from, and it's going to be something that you can revise, because several times the same question has come up in different guises, which is, can I change? Can I change my values? Can I change direction? Absolutely. We're benchmarking as we go. We're reviewing how satisfied we feel with our strategy and how it's working out, and we're making adjustments. So this is a living document that we revise. Now, I keep thinking of things that I should have said previously, and one of the things I wanted to mention today was designers who have pivoted their business. So I know we have some in the group, people who have had many years' experience working within interior design and just recently have decided to branch off and take a different approach or take a different direction. And the news there is, if you imagine, we keep talking about the trust that we're building with our clients through our consistent application, by showing up regularly, by being reliable, by having the same thing to say. When you pivot, you change your message. Now, you might hope that some of your audience remain interested and travel with you, but we can't assume that. So to some extent, a pivoted business is almost like a brand new business. We reset the clock on that important trust piece, and we're potentially in for another long period of establishing ourselves and building trust with a new audience, the audience that is now responding to our new approach. Another thing to say about pivoting is that when you don't have a direction, when you're unsure of how to represent yourself, when you don't have a strong sense of your values and exactly what your business does that is different to the rest of the pack, if you don't know that, during this grey period when the assembling trust isn't yet visible, you can lose faith and you might change direction. You might decide to try a different approach, a different strategy. Each time you change direction like that, it's like a little pivot. It's potentially severing you from the trust that you were starting to build and forcing you to start again, even though you might not know it because at that point that trust wasn't visible. So this is why having vision, having values, having direction, having a plan is so important, because it's all about getting that trust piece in place, and it takes time. Okay, so this week we have got 5 items on our 5-day agenda. We did vision and values on day 1. We spoke about your business model. So we've spoken about your clients, your market, what it is that your clients need from you. And as a result of thinking about that, we started to design services that were aligned with that client need. So rather than thinking, what does an interior designer do? I'll do that. It was thinking about your current level of competence, your current trust in the market, your tier, and the market that you're operating in, and the product, the service that you can best bring to that market to maximize the opportunity for you in the market. So we spoke about that on Tuesday as part of business model. Yesterday, we developed that by thinking about those services that we could offer and thinking about the potential revenues that might come into our business from each of those services. And we started thinking about revenue projection, because now we're coming into marketing and visibility. We are going to be looking, our marketing department is going to be looking to our sales department to give guidance on how many units need to be sold. And that will direct, to some extent, that will direct marketing activity, because we know how many we need to sell. Now we have to do the marketing to make those sales happen. So marketing and visibility is for today, and tomorrow we're going to be looking at the action plan. So the 7 points I'm going to take you through today, it's a bit of a jog, a bit of a race. First of all, your business's investment in marketing, and that is an investment of both time and money. Second point, 2 layers of marketing, which comes back to the business planning that we were talking about. Third point is the message that you have for the market and the channel that you transmit your message on, or the channels, the very specific channels that you've chosen intentionally, consciously, based on the analytical work that you've done on your business. Then we have a sort of a slightly new element, which is so important, increasingly so, and I think it will become more and more important as AI develops, is founder presence. So your visibility, the impact of you as an entity within your business is something that should be invested in and developed. I'm going to come back again to competitor research, which we did speak about previously. I'm going to finish up with a little bit of radical ownership, another theme that we spoke about on day 2. And then we're going to go through a sketch marketing plan and what that might look like. So, as I said, this is not a marketing masterclass. This is talking about planning your business and thinking about where planning your marketing sits within that overall task. So let's take a sort of basic look at marketing as part of this. Starting with how much time and money it is typical for an interior designer working on their own to put into their interior design business. So we have 2 modes. We have maintenance mode, which is when everything's ticking along, and this is the amount that we invest of time and money that just keeps us ticking along, that keeps us level. And then we think about a second mode, which is growth. So if we wanted, instead of keeping our business at the same level, to actually push it upwards, then we have a growth mode. Now, in terms of time, I remember when I first started teaching interior design, 20 years ago, we used to talk about the amount of time per week that would be you working in admin on your business. So not billable hours, but just admin hours in your business. And we used to advise that it would be sort of 1 to 2 days per week, if you were working full time, would need to be dedicated to admin. Now, there is so much more to do. Fortunately, we've got AI to help us, and that can speed us up in some respects. But marketing has just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So any of you who are watching who've been doing it for a while, marketing is just this monster. And it's increased that admin time that we need to spend in our business. So for maintenance, I think we need to look to spend half a day a week on marketing. And when we're in growth, we need to find a day a week to focus on marketing. And in terms of how much money you should be spending, as a rule of thumb, if you're looking at maintenance, you might put 5 to 7% of your revenue into marketing. But if you're hoping to grow your business, you're going to be looking at making a bigger investment. And typically that would be 10 to 15%. So that increases as our ambition to grow our business increases. Now, what triggers the change from maintenance to growth mode? The rule of thumb is that, excuse me, if you can see 6 months plus of business waiting for you in your pipeline, secured business that you know that you're going to be tackling in the next 6 months, you're in maintenance mode. That's absolutely fine. So we just press on with maintenance. But the minute that your pipeline shrinks such that from April or from March, you don't know where the money's coming from, you don't know what you're going to be shifting on to, then you want to push your marketing into growth mode. So that is the rule of thumb trigger for how you're going to be approaching marketing. So I've just put some basic figures onto this revenue projection sheet that we were looking at yesterday. And I've also added on the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 designation. So tier 1 was our startups. Tier 2 are our emerging designers who still have some growing pains, but they are up and running. Tier 3 is our mature businesses that are doing very nicely, and everything up front and in the back is, well ordered, and there's it's a decent business, decent money coming in. And then you might not be able to see it, but this final column is tier 4. And tier 4 is our stardom. It's the businesses that we all have an awareness of. It's the businesses that we see in magazines and the designers whose names that we know. So that is our tier 4 businesses. So depending on your revenues, here is a rough guide to how much you might be spending on your marketing, depending on whether you are in maintenance mode or in growth. Now, there's an awful lot to talk about here, so I'm going to try not to talk about it for too long. Tier 1, you have just started. Now, you might have some seed capital, you might have some money to spend to establish your business, and a priority for that money would be getting your terms and conditions, making sure that a lawyer has overseen them, your accountant, making sure you have an accountant, getting your insurance in place, all of these. It's a bit like when you renovate a house and you spend all the money behind the walls or on the roof and not in the finishes that are the things that you actually want to spend the money on. So tier 1, if you don't have a decent chunk of seed capital to get going with, you're probably going to be making your own website, which is actually not a bad thing because it means you know how to use it and you can update it yourself. And for things like you won't have projects yet to photograph, but once you do, the cost of getting a project photographed is, upwards of, at the very lowest price I see is about £500. It goes up to £1,500 or £2,000, and that can be per day to get a project photograph. So that is part of our marketing budget. Now, tier 1, you don't have the project yet to photograph. Once you move into tier 2, you possibly are spending your marketing budget on getting your portfolio together, getting that record produced, your record of photographs produced. Again, you're possibly still working off the website and the branding that you set up for yourself in tier 1. And it's only towards the end of tier 2 that I start to see designers who are thinking about a new website, for example. Now, once you start commissioning websites, you're getting into £4,000 to £6,000 maybe of development costs, perhaps more. And so that, again, is a massive part of your marketing budget. I see designers in tier 3 starting to look at, particularly if they want to push on up into tier 4, then we start to see major investment in things like websites. And indeed, then when we get into tier 4 itself, we're starting to think about expenses like, maybe now, and then perhaps in tier 3, you're starting to pay somebody else to look after the marketing part of your business, to push it out on a daily or a weekly basis. And perhaps in tier 4, you're on retainer with a PR company, and that is costing you £3,000 or £4,000 at least per month retainer to have somebody who is looking after you out in the publishing world and finding opportunities for you to raise your public profile. So this is how your marketing spend evolves with time. And I think it's important to be thinking about making those investments. But obviously in the first stages, everybody's in the same boat. I was thinking about it today. I mean, when you're starting out, it's like you're joining a race that's already, you're about to join a race that's already on a track. The people who are racing have been doing it forever. They're already match fit. They're already nice and fit. As you start, as you join, it's really hard. And that's just the way it is for everybody. So anyway, enough of that. As I said, could talk about this a lot more, but we don't have time. So maintenance and growth, your time is going to be half a day or a day per week, depending which mode you're in. And in terms of money, you're going to be spending between 5 and 15% of your revenues invested back in your business to get that public-facing messaging part of your business absolutely shipshape and appropriate for the level at which you are currently operating. So I want to talk to you about two layers of marketing, because there is an amount of marketing that, let's call it non-negotiable, that probably every interior design business should be doing, regardless of the nature of your business and the uniqueness of your offering. Everybody should be doing, everyone should have a website eventually. You can start out with a holding page. That's absolutely fine. You can't magic up a business from scratch. You have to build it over time. So you have to have a website. You need to be concerned about SEO. You need to be able to be concerned about the visibility of that website and its ranking when people search for you. So you need to have a website where you can see the analytics of the website. So you can see how many views you're getting, how many pages people are visiting, how often they're coming, if they're staying for a while, and you need all of that information about your website. And if you're like me, you'll capture that information on a weekly or monthly basis, and you'll use it to help you to understand how that trust piece is building in the background. Now, this website and SEO piece is a long-term it's a long-term project. It is something that is going to deliver in years rather than months. But I see it, I think, as being the most potent part of the successful designer. So the designers that I'm working with who probably are the most successful are seeing their website as the engine that drives their business. So very important. Then we have client relationship management or customer relationship management, CRM, which is the data and the records that you hold about your clients and the information that you have about whether they're warm or whether they're cold, whether they're active or whether they're dormant, how often you need to get in touch with them. And a small part of that is your mailing list. So your CRM is everybody absolutely the whole world, the architects, the builders, your curtain maker, all of that goes into your big sort of database. But then you have a mailing list, and these are the people who have agreed, formally agreed, that they want to hear from you. So they have opted in to receive your marketing messages. Your mailing list belongs to you. So Instagram doesn't belong to you, Facebook doesn't, LinkedIn doesn't, the algorithm could change. You're not in control of that situation, but you are in control of your mailing list, and it's something you should be growing. Then we have social media. And I think within social media, you also need to be visible. Now, you have to have a sort of everybody should have a low level of visibility, which means that when someone passes by, if someone decides they want to work with you, they found your website or they found you through some other mechanism or whatever, and they decide that they're just going to pop onto Instagram and have a look, when they go there, they need to see that there is an active account. They need not to be concerned that perhaps you've ceased trading. So that doesn't mean that you need to diligently attend to it on a daily basis, but it does need to look active, fresh, and have some energy about it. Okay, those are your non-negotiables. All built up over time, and with the real strength being in the early part, but having to have that social media low-level engagement as well. Then we get into what I call the bespoke part, the second layer of marketing. And this is going to be different for each one of you because, I'm sorry, I'm just check what slide I've got. Okay, so in day 2, when we spoke about your business model, I encouraged you to think about the description of your business. And I reflected on the quality of description that you find at the top end of the market and the homogeneity of the description that you find in the mass. In the mass, when you look at your competitors, it will be unusual to find anything that particularly stands out. There might be one or two in the area that stand out, but you will start to see very common ways of talking about design. And if you put yourself in the position of the client, it doesn't cut through. There's so much noise, it doesn't cut through. So I was encouraging you to think about your unique offering. You know, why would someone choose to work with you over one of the competitors that is in your local market? The second thing that we looked at was the description of your client. And we talked about client avatars. So I said to you that you might have several client avatars that you're hoping to work with. You might have, I don't know, an affluent young family. You might have an older couple downsizing. You know, these could be your avatars. Now, depending on if you live in commuter belt or you live in a city centre, and your clients are professionals, and I'm talking about sort of successful, serious-minded professionals, it could be that those clients, the ones that you aspire to connect with, are actually, their natural habitat is LinkedIn, could be. So if if you have the aspiration of connecting with these serious professionals, and you're on Instagram, and that's where you're putting the majority of your effort, you could be missing a trick. You know, maybe LinkedIn is where you need to be. So we look to our client to give us direction on where to meet them, and we go where they are. Okay, so this is what I mean by the bespoke part of your business plan. So in the bespoke area, we have social media, but the high level where you're really going to be putting your focus. We have things like LinkedIn, we have things like very specific networking. So you might decide that your route into working as an interior designer is actually to work with property developers, let's say. And so maybe you go onto LinkedIn, or maybe you approach people directly, you know, through some body or organization or through your contractor or whatever. But we're talking about not trying to be everywhere and not feeling like we have to do everything, but being very specific about where we go and what we say when we get there, because we have a very specific client in mind. Okay, so that is your sort of first layer and second layer of your marketing. Now, I spoke about, sorry, time check, founder presence. And founder presence is increasingly part of our day job. It's being visible. It's your unfair advantage in a noisy market. If your clients can't see you, they can't choose you. And trust, the whole trust piece that I keep talking about is personal, even when the service is professional. So people are looking to connect with people with whom they feel a connection. So founder presence is really important. And I'm amazed. I often get DMs from designers and they don't sign off with their name. And their business name gives no indication of who they are. And so I scrabble around, I look at their Instagram, there's no sign of them. I look at their website, no name, and I have no idea who I'm talking to. And all I know is I would not approach that business because I'd have fallen over at the very first step. So your founder presence at the very least requires that you have a clear name, a face, a location, and a warm, welcoming hello for your clients. There should also be, ideally, a short founder story that signals your credibility and meets your clients with warmth. You know, sometimes I've also seen designer photographs that look quite scary or intimidating or not very friendly. So, you know, I guess it depends who you're hoping to attract, but you need to look tier one, tier two, tier three, you have to look approachable, accessible, and friendly. Your founder presence includes your philosophy on interior design. So what is your philosophy? What do you believe about interior design that is an original idea? So you need to be expressing a consistent point of view, what you believe matters, and say it plainly, and say it again and again and again. And proof that you lead. So testimonials that don't just say X design company is brilliant, but also say that designer Y was super and we loved working with them. So proof in terms of testimonials as well. And this is not about ego. It's about establishing this important trust piece. So I have a challenge for you, which is, I guess it was day 2, when we were talking about business planning. I told you that I had put a resource in the Hothouse group under the Files tab. It's called the AI Prompt Pack for competitor research. And I suggested that you turn that on yourself. Okay, so use it to check out your competition, but use it as well to check out yourself, because maybe your studio has evolved, but your marketing hasn't. And it's possible that AI will pick that up. Or maybe in the time that you've been operating, the market has moved, but your website hasn't moved with it. That's something else that, an impartial critique is going to bring to your attention. And when we do this along with competitor research, we're able to compare ourselves to the market. Your competitors are setting a baseline. Okay, if you don't at least match that baseline and hopefully exceed it, then you're going to lose business to your competitors. So I think this competitor research and then turning it on yourself is very important. So here are some questions that you can ask AI that will help you to see yourself more clearly. So you can ask AI with regard to your profile. Now, AI, I'm no GPT-5, ChatGPT. I don't think it can look directly at Instagram accounts anymore. I think Facebook might have shut that off. But you can screenshot. So you can screenshot competitor Instagram accounts. And of course, you can give it website URLs, including your own. So you can ask it to look at your website and ask it if it instantly understands who this service is for. You can ask, is the offer clear within 10 seconds? Is there visible proof, projects, testimonials, or press? Does the website reassure you with a breakdown of how this relationship is going to work, how I am going to work with you? Is it obvious how to inquire and then what's going to happen next once you have? Does it feel current? So is the imagery current? Is the tone used within the copy current? Does it perform well on a mobile or an iPad as well as a website or a laptop? Does it load quickly? Does it instantly spring up, or do you have to wait for it to load? And is the style of the website current, or does it look perhaps like it's a little bit older? You can ask again, do I have a clear, distinct, and compelling USP? And is the language that I'm using about my services original? Is it interesting? Does it excite interest? And final question, is it client-centric? Now, when I say, is it client-centric, quite often when we're talking about our businesses, we like to talk about our credentials, why you should hire me, let me tell you a bit more about me. But actually, your client is looking for transformation. the client wants to know how their life is going to change if they engage your services. It's actually all about them. It's about demonstrating your understanding of their current situation and selling to them, persuading them of the dramatic transformation that will come once you start working together. So interior design services are bought by both the heart and the head. So it's a two-system purchase. So the heart is going to make the decision. So you need to speak to the client and sell to their heart, make them feel in their heart that this is the future vision that they want. And it's all about them, and it's all about providing them with their ideal, their dream solution. So it's about them. System 2 is the mind, the brain, and that's about permission. So once the heart is sold, it's going to be, you're well in there once the heart is sold, but that's when we follow up with the credentials and the evidence and the proof of our professionalism. And it's following in with the head and giving permission to buy the thing that the heart wants. So we need to make sure that our marketing is serving on both fronts. Okay, so my favorite theme for 2026, radical ownership, is looking directly at your business, not flinching, not looking away, and being prepared to constructively criticize the way that you're currently operating. Maybe thinking about it again from with fresh eyes. Okay, so final 7 slides, I think. How are we doing? Okay. And this is an overview of a sketch marketing plan. Tomorrow, we're going to pull everything together, but this is the sort of the headlines, the 7 headlines that I would expect to see in a sketch marketing plan. So headline 1 is your vision, your values, and your constraints. Now, we spoke about this on day 1. What you're building this year, your vision, how you want to build it, what you want to be known for, how you like to think of yourself, what your self-image is based on, your values. And we also spoke about the fact that your vision and your values must have commonality. You can't be empire building if your values are elsewhere. If your values aren't about work, 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 excellence, ambition, drive, if those aren't your values, then massive empire building probably shouldn't be your vision. So we want to make sure that vision and values align. And then we think about your capacity and the boundaries that you have and the tier that you're working in. If you've just launched, you've got a lot of work just getting your business into some kind of workable shape. So your marketing is obviously going to be, you're going to be limited, and you're probably going to be perhaps a little bit slower than someone who's a bit more experienced. So we think about the tier that we're in so that the plan that we make is realistic. Heading 2 in the sketch marketing plan is your commercial goals and your sales targets. And we spoke about those yesterday. So yesterday we created a revenue target for the year. And that was based on the product or the service sales targets that we decided to set for ourselves each year as we see our business become more sophisticated, moving away from those accessible, inexpensive, low-risk products to those much more, high-end, aspirational products at a later stage of practice once the trust has been built. And we saw the change in revenue annually as we went through that. So commercial goals and sales targets. What are your sales targets for the year? How many of each of your services are you planning on selling, and by when? So you could literally just cut and paste that 1 year snapshot view into this space. Now, I talk about pipeline maths. So I've said that in my business, I measure my business weekly. Now I actually have a spreadsheet. I showed you the first page of it, which goes out in my newsletter every week. Let me know if you want to subscribe to my newsletter if you don't get it. Front page, there is a back page. Now the back page is a few additional metrics that I collect that I don't make public. And that includes things like how many discovery calls I've had and whether or not that converts into business. So this is the kind of data that you too want to collect eventually about your business. And if you are keeping your client relation management system up to date, then that just needs to be a basic spreadsheet. I've blogged about CRM. You can read about basic CRM on the blog. But if you're keeping your CRM, your client relationship management database, updated, you'll see which of the clients that step forward and initiate a process with you actually follow through and end up becoming live clients. We collect that information so that we know what our conversion rates are. We know, what percentage of the clients who step forward become paying clients. So that would tell us that if we had a 30% conversion rate, that we would need to get 3 times as many people in to talk to us as we hope to sell services. So if I want to sell 10 packets of service and I have a 33% conversion rate, I need to speak to 30 people and convert a third of them in order to sell 10 packets. Now I have a target for the number of conversations I want to have. This is all getting horribly complicated. I don't want to burden you with all of this stuff. I just want to raise awareness of it, and I would like you to engage with it at the level that feels comfortable. Okay, so do the bits that you feel comfortable with. Make that be more than you were previously doing so that there's progress, and get excited about the fact that, this machine that you're building has all of these complexities. It's got these levers, it's got gears, and eventually, when you've got to grips with a basic model, you can then get down and dirty, get the sleeves rolled up, and get into all of these levers and gears. And that is really exciting. That is real CEO stuff. So I'll talk to you in a minute about how overwhelming this is or isn't. Okay, so the third heading in this sketch marketing plan is your client definition. We spoke about it on day 2, and we sort of slightly touched on it when we were talking about values in day 1. So it's who you are best suited to work with, who you want to work with, and it also helps you define who you don't want to work with. That is also good information. And we've spoken about this client profile. We've talked about the client avatar. We want to get under the skin of these people so that we're meeting them in more than a superficial way, so that we really understand them, we can make a connection, and we can talk to them about and demonstrate how well we understand how they're feeling and, what lies in their future that is, more than they could have dreamed of if they engage with us. So what they care about, what their fears are, what they aspire to. And also, a sales strategy would understand what triggers them to buy now, but also what's causing them to hold back. So you want to start maybe thinking about the reasons that clients give you for not wanting to commit right now, and coming up with counter arguments for that, or positioning that knocks those things down before the opportunity comes for the client to take the step back. So what triggers them to buy, and what might block them, and what could you do? It could even be changing the nature of your service to remove some of those potential barriers to sales. Okay, Number 4 of 7, your offer suite. So the suite of services that you offer. This came from day 2, and we worked with it yesterday when we were looking at financial projections. What do you sell? What are your core services? How are they packaged? How do you package them? Now, something I see sometimes is a designer who is perhaps nervous about losing business and tries to create too many different services. So they're concerned that the thing that they've created isn't going to capture all the possible business. And so they decide to make a whole list of prospective offerings to give the client a choice. Now, this to me can feel a bit like, when you go into a restaurant and the menu is too big and you feel overwhelmed. And in the end, you feel like you can't make a decision. Don't put off a warm client. If you've got a warm client stepping forward, have something simple to sell to them. And don't try to diversify too much so that they get confused and they can't make a decision. So how you package your entry points, the tier that you're currently working at, your current level of competence and what you feel comfortable doing, and so on. And what would you like to become known for this year? And I'm talking this year because next year we can shift up and we can go for a higher goal or a different goal. Number 5 is positioning and message. Again, this is coming from day 1 and day 2. It's sharpened by the competitor research that you've done and by the AI critique of your business. Nothing has helped me see my business more clearly than getting AI to reflect me back to myself. That has helped enormously. So your positioning and message is going to include a short statement, your elevator pitch, a sentence or two about why the devil should someone hire you and not your competitor, and why should they do it now? Okay, so that's your elevator pitch. It is just a sentence or two. You need to be able to say it in a sentence. It's really hard. But that takes work, it takes refinement. And you need to make sure that the message that you're delivering is client-centric. So it's not about what a great designer you are. It's about let me tell you about how you're feeling. Let me tell you about the services that can improve the way that you're feeling. Let's talk about you. The client is the hero. Okay, number 6, you can list your marketing assets. And this is the first layer of marketing assets. So this is the things that are non-negotiable that every interior design business should have: website, SEO, mailing list, client relationship management. If you are just starting out, just start with a website. Don't worry, make sure that you maybe pick a system that will enable you to introduce good analytics. So, but you don't have to do everything at once. You just need to make sure that it will grow with you as you go. But here's our sort of first base layer of assets that we would have in our marketing function. And then finally, my last slide, number 7, your channels and your visibility strategy. So this is the second layer. This is the bespoke bit that is going to be different for everybody. I bet it would be slightly different for everyone who's here today. It's the particular channels where you are going to focus the greatest of your attention, because intellectually you have figured out that the ideal client that you want to work with, that you have properly mentally established, the avatar for this client, the profile of this client, you have worked out where that client is to be found. And so that's where you're going to go. That's where you're going to be consistent. That's where you're going to show up every week with something, an interesting point of view and some news about your business, and something to, to keep them, to draw their attention, to warm them up, and eventually to start building that trust. So your channels and your visibility strategy, second layer, comes from day 4 today. It's where your clients congregate, your chosen channels. It's your primary platform, just picking one. In my case, it's Instagram, although I do a lot of work on my website. And then any other supporting channels. So I really should be more active on LinkedIn. I have it on my metrics that I measure every week. It's usually red, which means it's always in need of attention. But because it's there, I do keep going back to it and giving it some attention. Then you have your any partnership or referral route. So any networking or any other professional individuals that you want to engage with who could help you with the dissemination of your design services. Okay, so those are the 7 headings for our sketch marketing plan. It's a lot. It is a lot. We should talk about it. We will in a minute. Okay, so day 4, we did your investment in marketing, time and money, the 2 layers of marketing, the non-negotiables that everybody should have, and the extra layer that is just for you, the message that you should be transmitting, the channel that you choose to transmit on, the fact that you have to be visible, that is a non-negotiable, and increasingly so because AI is going to start making inroads into interior design services. The fact that competitor research can catapult you forward, especially if you turn it on yourself, which is a form of radical ownership. And we went through the sketch marketing plan. So tomorrow I'm going to be back and we're going to look at the whole thing, a global picture of everything that we've discussed this week. But now I am going to stop sharing, and I hope some of you are still there. And we will open the floor. Oh gosh, look, lots of people have stayed. And ask if anybody. So Laura, you are waving at me. Have you got a question?
It's not a question as such, but I just wanted to sort of share with the group. I did the AI competitor analysis last night. I just chose one other designer that's sort of very local to me, and then I flipped it over and did it on myself, and it was really interesting and so useful actually. And not as scary as I expected because actually it was really positive in terms of what it came back with and the way that we both differentiate ourselves actually is yeah it was really helpful and actually I felt like I was probably in the right place, but it also gave me some really good tips about how I could change my website and really make me sort of engage with the clients better and really get it more focused. So I highly recommend it. It was
Yeah.
useful.
Well, when you have that information as well, you can really lean into it,
Yeah.
so you can, and people, when I was starting out, I used to hear this all the time that niche, niche, niche. But actually, it's true. The more you lean in, the narrower your message gets, the more intense the reaction that you get back.
Mm.
So well done, congratulations, and
Thank you.
I'm glad that it works out for you. But
It was good, thank you. But I mean, obviously, yeah, things I need to work on, but it was just really helpful. But and also just this week has been brilliant so far. So thank you very much.
it's a huge pleasure. Any other questions? Timna, hello. Gosh, you look
Hello.
cold.
Oh, yeah. I've got used to wearing my fingerless gloves, and it just keeps me a bit cozy. There were two pertinent questions I had just to quickly try and bring up. But I also did the. I've been working on the values using AI, and I mean the only problem with it is that it keeps spewing up offers of doing even more and even more and even more, and you just can't resist it. So you go, oh, go on then, yes please. And then it gives you a whole load of other stuff. You're like, would you like me to try and da da da? And you go, oh yes, please. But it did break it down to elevator pitch and taglines and things like that. So it is useful, even though it does keep you reeled in.
Now, you are someone I would expect to really know your values. I think you probably had a I just imagine that from when I look at your business, I see someone I feel who like really knows themselves. So
I do, but I was really taken with yours. And I put yours in and I said, I don't want to just copy hers. But I felt that mine resonated with a lot of yours, but I wanted to do it in my own words. That's how I started,
yeah,
actually, because
okay.
I found yours really, really interesting. And it also, because I think the problem is that we do live in our own little echo chambers, don't we? And so there's certain things that we can reel off. There are certain values I could, I mean, I say reel off, I don't mean that they're insincere, but there's things that you do know about yourself, but then you read someone else's and you go, oh yeah, that completely is what I'm about. So I
Yeah.
think it's kind of useful to bring in somebody else's because that brings in a different part of the discussion and helps to
Yeah, but
spur on.
ultimately you have to stick to your own. You've got to
Oh
get
yeah,
to,
completely.
yeah,
And it went on for a long time.
yeah, yeah,
As I
yeah.
say, it kind of we kept defining and doing that. So that was really good. I have two quick questions. So so when you talk about checking analytics on website, I don't do very much. I do. I kind of skim read it and I go, oh, that's interesting, and then do nothing with it. I wonder if I'm the only person that does that. I wonder if everybody else is really good at. But I find what you do really interesting, and it's something that I want to try and do for this year is to be a bit more on top of that kind of data. How often, not as you, or should we all be checking it as often
You know
as you?
what? I'm going to tell you, you should do it every week.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fine. That's what I thought you'd say.
Yeah. You could, at the very least, every month. If you're going to do it less frequently than monthly, it's almost
I
don't bother
do it.
it. But
I think I do it monthly because it gets emailed to me monthly, but
yeah,
only because I'm prompted to look.
yeah. So what is your second question? Just
Yeah,
thinking about
to
the
do
time.
with commercial goals. I'm not sure if this is relevant to everyone else, so maybe it's not something you want to spend time on. But when you were talking about projections, you were talking about it specifically for us CEO individuals of our businesses. But with the consultancy that I'm setting up, which is three of us, does that muddy the water? Like, how would I be able to project for
Oh, well,
on behalf of all three of
yeah,
us?
no, you have to have a separate business plan for that business. You start from scratch and treat that as a different business.
Okay.
And it would have its own revenue projections and its own marketing plan, and that
Yeah.
would all,
Yeah.
and quite honestly, you probably should do that to get the most out of that business and not just apply presuppositions about how it's going to work.
Well, it is different. The client base is different. Everything
Yeah,
about it, the way I would be working. I mean, I hope that the two will cross over because I want to be designing as well
yeah.
within that. But I can, yeah, okay, good
Okay, cool.
advice. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just aware that we've only
Yeah.
got 2 minutes left. Manuela, you've got your hand up.
Hi. So I have two IT related questions actually, because you suggest a lot about AI use, which I also use. But I recently found it less satisfying to work with ChatGPT, so I've started working with Claude. Even though I buy the ChatGPT Pro, whatever,
Yeah.
I find it a bit less fulfilling in terms of answers it gives me. It's like keep on pleasing me, which is kind of annoying. So it keeps on telling me, "Oh, you're right," even if when it does make mistakes. So I was wondering, what is the overall experience that you yourself and the group has with the AI, and what would be at the moment the best one you would suggest? Because I'm working, as I said, with the Gemini, sorry, with Claude, and I'm starting
Yeah.
Gemini too, but I don't even want to disperse my time and energy. And
Okay.
the second question, always IT related, is I don't have a website yet, so I still need to work on that. It's my priority for this first semester. But I'm still trying to understand which kind of platform, or I cannot even say the right word properly at the moment. So would you work with, I don't know, which kind of IT place would you use to do it if you do it yourself? So
Yeah.
I just can't put together the words, the
No,
technical words that keep on
that's all
coming to my
right.
mind today.
So so there's a test. It's called Humanity's Last Test, which sounds a bit existential. And it's the test they give to AIs to see how well they are comparing against like PhD students, basically. And just recently, Google launched a new version of Gemini that scored 37% on humanity's last test. And that's the highest that an AI has scored. And it put it 5 percentage points over ChatGPT, which means that Gemini is currently, well, last week was the hottest tip in town. But that changes all the time, because since then, OpenAI has updated ChatGPT, and it's got a little bit better, but it's not as good as Gemini. So, it's like they're just all overtaking each other all of the time.
It's quickly evolving, actually.
Yes. And I have completely forgotten the name of the Antonia Stephanie. Can you remember in Business in a Box? Who did I recommend for making a website? What's the number one player? I can't, there's completely
Like,
gone.
comes to my mind Foursquare.
No, it wasn't
Squarespace.
Wix.
Squarespace?
Squarespace. Thank you.
Okay.
Squarespace.
And do you use it plain, or do you use it with a plugin with another like Elementor kind of thing that goes
No,
on
you
top?
use it. So you don't need Elementor. So it's not like it's all that stuff is built in. So it's not like WordPress. So Squarespace, and one of the reasons Squarespace it can grow with you. I mean, don't take my word for it. I don't have any affiliation with them. I use Acuity for booking meetings and taking payments. So if you go onto my website and you book a one-on-one with me, you'll book it through Acuity and the money will be immediately sent to me. And Acuity is owned by Squarespace. So it integrates well with that kind of thing, and it integrates with all of the other stuff that you might want to bring into your website over time. And you can build it for free, but I think the minute that you want it to go live, you have to start paying a monthly subscription.
Okay.
Jenny, you're nodding, so I guess it's not hugely expensive, but
I'd
yeah.
say Squarespace is really easy to set up. You can use a free template on there. The only thing I'd say is when you start adding bits on, like the Acuity, the mailing list, the price starts to increase because you're paying monthly for those. And if you want a Google email, the prices go up suddenly quite a bit. I've taken Acuity off mine and used Calendly because it's a bit cheaper, but it doesn't bed in the same way that Julia's mentioned. But I found I'm not very IT literate, and Squarespace was very easy to set up and easy to maintain as well.
Yeah, because I was wondering actually image-wise and the kind of things we need as interior designers to upload on our website, what was the best in your experiences? Because, I've been recommended many times to go into WordPress plus the Elementor, but I kind of feel a bit overwhelming it. It's a bit overwhelming, like it's a lot of work that comes together with it in terms of learning further IT stuff. So yeah, okay. So Squarespace is a recommendation from the group, I guess. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, I'm really sorry. I'm going to Christina, one quick,
Very,
last
very
question.
quickly. I've put it in the chat as well. It's only that because those particular slides kind of form the foundation for our plans, could you possibly send the slides as well as the recording?
Yes, I will make a version of the slides and I'll put them in Hothouse as well. Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up for today. Now, I actually think we have covered most of the ground now. We really have. So tomorrow is just going to be refreshing across the surface. And I hope that tomorrow will leave more time for questions. Okay, so we'll have a bit more time at the end. And I'm sorry, I know some of you can't attend tomorrow. My apologies. You can always ask questions in Hothouse. So please feel free. And I am going to stop recording. I'm going to cook it. I'm going to put the recording into Hothouse. And I hope I will get to see some or all of you again tomorrow. But thank you very much for sticking with it. Oh my goodness. I really thought that by day 4, I might just be me sitting talking to myself. So it's very nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. See you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, bye.